days. So I'm planning to post her for tomorrow. She's 39-year-old, para 2 live, no, para 3 live 3 previous section. And then she has undergone one laparoscopic salpingectomy also for ectopic pregnancy. So finally, I mean, tomorrow I have posted for hysterectomy because she has got a huge fibroid, not responding to medical management. So I just want to know what all the precautions to be taken before operating her. 3 previous section and then one.
What are you planning? Are you planning to go for open method or laparoscopic method?
Open method only, madam, abdominal hysterectomy. She has got submucosal fibroid about 8 centimeters, 8 by 7. That's what is given in ultrasound. She has taken medical management for 2 years. Now she is very keen about undergoing surgery.
Okay. Only I'm talking about regarding surgical part of it. So for this preoperative preparation of the patient is very important here, because you know that the patient has previous surgery. Then we have to anticipate certain problems whenever the patient have any surgeries, like including cesarean sections or any salpingectomy, any laparotomy for whatever the reasons. So detailed history taking is very important regarding what has happened at the particular time and then any other complications has occurred during that time. So that is very important. So that at least we should take care, you can take more care during this surgery. And as a routine investigations, we can the investigations like whatever we do, the basic workup and all that. And other thing is, especially when previous cesarean sections are there, this patient had only salpingectomy, isn't it?
Yes,
So
madam.
there might be some problems in the head and axle region because of the additions and all that. The bowel additions might be there. So those things we have to anticipate. And other thing is sometimes because of the laparotomy itself, that there may be additions of the uterus to the anterior abdominal wall. So everything, whatever it is, that any previous one laparotomy or anything like that, any surgery, we have to anticipate this any of these problems. Then after that, once you suppose, especially when the patient have three or two or more than two cesarean sections, then urinary tract injuries are very common, as we all know. That is one thing where we have to anticipate that, and then we have to prepare for any bowel additions also. Okay. So then during at the time of the surgery, as a routine, the preparation is normal as whatever the anesthesia you choose, you can opt for that anesthesia. And then preoperative draping and all those things are very important. And preoperative antibiotic, usually we give 1/2 hour before the this thing surgery. Routinely we give that 2 grams of cefazolin or cefixime. Is any of these drugs can be given 2 grams. That is one thing. If the patient is more than 120 kgs or something like that, we can give 3 grams also. So that is one good the thing which can prevent the infection in the post-operative period. Then once you're opening the abdomen, we might have the problem. We can take the, depending upon the surgery, what you're doing and the size of the uterus and all that, we have to choose the type of incision, what we have to give. Whether you are going to give the incision at the same site, or whether you need to give the vertical incision in some cases, like suppose there is a large, very, very large fibroid where you anticipate more problems, or where there is a ovarian masses and all this, especially the ovarian masses and all that. If you anticipate any the malignancy or anything, there is no question of giving any transverse incision. We have to go for a midline vertical incision to extend it up and then go for the detailed examination of the abdomen and all that. So we are not talking about that. Now once open that, then there may be scarring of the rectus sheath and all that. Sometimes that also will be very difficult once when you are opening that to get the level of the rectus muscles. So till the time we'll be finding that little difficulty. But once we go into one plane, then definitely when we can get the rectus sheath and then cut on either side. So sometimes we split also if it is easy, or both the ways it can be done. There is nothing in that. And once after that, the rectus abdomen muscles should be split in between so that we can get the peritoneum, and then opening of the peritoneum itself is we have to be very careful regarding that. So sometimes the bladder will be drawn up. So sometimes usually when we open the peritoneum down towards the lower side, there may be an injury to the bladder at the time itself, because most of the time we have seen that the bladder is drawn so high up, almost onto the uterus, the fundus of the uterus, up to the even up to the body of the uterus and all that. So we have to be little careful when opening the peritoneum, and also not only the bladder, the other thing is sometimes bowel adherence might also be there. So these are the things where once we open, get a small window in the peritoneum, that we are definite that we are in the peritoneal cavity, then we can extend the peritoneum down and then open the abdomen in a that is so that it is adequately seen properly, like using a self-retainable catheter, so retractors or other retractors or this thing. Then once you open the abdomen, so we have to first thing is visualize all the organs. Okay, whatever is seen, how the uterus is, whether it is header and posteriorly, what is the position of the bladder, and what is the position of the adnexia, and adnexia in the sense in the where, especially where salpingectomy on the side where salpingectomy is done, most probably there might be bowel adhesions at that place. So all these are the things we have to first see and then plan the surgery before going for the main surgery. Then this thing, once we can go step by step, like hysterectomy, like how we do, like on the round ligament opening and all that. Only thing is that when you are doing it, once the round ligament is the main part, first we have to recognize. So because that gives in any difficult cases, once you open the catch hold of the round ligament and open the round ligament, then it will be very convenient for the surgery for us. So the round ligament should be identified, clamped, cut, and ligated, and it should be cut, ligated, and then next is whether we are undertaking this salpingoperectomy or not. That is another important part. So now you know that first the ureter, the course of the ureter must be followed, especially in the previous surgeries. We have to identify certain. We know that there are danger points for the ureters. One important thing is at the infundibulopelvic ligament. So in the infundibulopelvic ligament, it is almost medial to the ovarian artery. So almost it is medial to the ovarian artery, just we can say it half centimeter, very close to the ovary, because we are removing the ovary here. So this is the place where to identify the ureter and clamp is ideal thing, like either by opening the peritoneum, over that once you open the round ligament, you just extend the round that opening the window, then you can see the external the external iliac vessels. Then once you identify the external iliac vessels, and then we go little up, we can see bifurcation of the common iliac arteries. So then on that the ureter will be crossing, isn't it? So when it is crossing over that, then you can follow the ureter and see if you can trace the ureter, and then push it medially towards the uterus, so that the ureter will be away from that. Okay, and then putting sometimes usually we are not used for opening the peritoneum like this and then identifying the ureter and this pushing the ureter laterally. It should be done, especially in a case of radical cases. It is a must. But in a simple case, but we have to be very careful that we should know that this is a point where the ureter can be involved, very close to the that is a tube and ovary. We have to put the clamps, and then like it's a blind method, but most of the time we will not injure the ureter. But then cut in between the this thing two clamps, or 3 clamps, how many you have put, and then go medially, and then they remove that part of the salpingo-oophorectomy is done. Then once we go down on either side, once it is done, if there are any additions, because here always already salpingectomy is done, most of the time there might be additions that by any, if the flimsy additions are there, try to separate the bowels from the uterus with a sharp dissection. Okay. Then after that, then go to the broad ligament, and then you go down, you go in the UV fold, up to the UV fold of peritoneum, and there here comes that sometimes the bladder might be adherent very densely to the lower uterine segment and the upper part of the cervix. So this is the part. This is a place where we have to be very careful. So what you try to open the peritoneum first and see the anatomy of the bladder. So usually, if the dome is very well seen, and then you're able to dissect, push the bladder down. Always push the bladder by the fine dissection, but not by the blunt dissection. If you do the blunt dissection, what will happen by pushing with some swab or something like that? It goes into the layers of the bladder, and then it starts bleeding, and unnecessarily we'll be meshing up the surgery. So by the short dissection, it should be done. And sometimes we may not get the fundus, like sometimes it may be puckered into the previous scar. Suppose if there is a previous cesarean scar. If there is no previous cesarean scar, usually there will not be any additions, and then we can push the bladder down very easily after opening the UV fold. It is one thing. And then suppose if it is previous cesarean section, then in those cases we have to be careful. There can be injury at the dome of the bladder. There can be injury to the body of the bladder or down also. But most of the time it is the dome of the bladder, which is, in our cases, it will be very much a threat for the injury. So at the dome of the bladder, what you try to see is that whether we can dissect it by sharp dissection or close to the uterus, and then push the bladder down, because bladder is adherent only at the point of lower segment cesarean section. But beyond that, the rest of the bladder is usually the subareolar tissues behind the bladder will be free only. So once we separate this part, the rest of the bladder can be pushed very easily. So that point you have to remember. Suppose you are not able to open, if you think that it is puckered into this thing, incision site. So what you do is that there is one approach like that. The lateral approach. Usually, what we do with the experience, we will see that the lateral part of the uterus, the lateral part of the bladder rise, after pushing the peritoneum down, slowly go into the between the planes of the bladder and the cervix. So you can see that with the sharp dissection, some additions will be there also. So slowly go behind the bladder and go down down the bladder up to the opposite side. Then you can create a tunnel. So that is the place where the bladder is not adherent to the uterus or the cervix. That is that place will be very clearly, easily dissectable. Then once you dissect that part, then you can come to the fundus by slowly slipping over it, your finger, and then you can just separate the fundus and the upper part of the fundus, and by the close dissection between the cervix or the uterus and the bladder. Okay. So these are the things, like once you separate the that part of the bladder, the rest of the bladder can be pushed down. Okay. And the other thing is that rest of the thing is that first, before that, like when you think that the bladder is adherent and all that, when you are pushing it down, there may be injury to the uterine arteries. So almost it will be very close to the uterine arteries. So in those cases, we may have to clamp the uterine arteries first, and then so that there will not be much bleeding down the when we are separating it. So that is one other step we have to see. Depending upon that, we can do the dissection.
Anything to do with regarding Foley's bulb inflation, the amount of fluid, or should we keep filling the bladder to know the extent?
No, no, no. We can do it whenever we suspect injury to the bladder, when the distension of the bladder. But otherwise, the bladder. Normally, we put the Foley easily into the bladder, isn't it? Before that,
Yes.
cover the continuous drainage. We can put a three-way catheter into the bladder, so that if there is any problem, we can inject some dye into the through the third this thing into the bladder. That is one thing. The catheter Foley, instead of normal double the openings, that triple way bladder the catheter should be put, so that it can be easily, instead of manipulations and all that, directly we can put the dye or anything. There are so many ways of detecting the bladder injuries that, as we have discussed previously, the other places where we can injure the ureter is that at the level of the uterine artery again. So uterine artery, it is from the uterine artery, it crosses under the uterine artery, so that it at that place where usually where we cervicovaginal junction where we put the clamps, it will be only about 1 to 2 centimeters away from the that junction, so that we have to be very close to the uterus as possible, as it is much as well as possible. We should be close to the this thing uterus, and then cut in between, so that will not injure the uterus. And another place where it can be injured is that, especially this ureter, when we are pushing the bladder down, along with the bladder, the what another tip is that when you are opening the peritoneum anteriorly, open the peritoneum and try to open the peritoneum posteriorly also, and push the peritoneum down, so that most of the times when you push the peritoneum down posteriorly also, the ureter will fall down, so it will not come into our way. So that is another precaution you can take. Almost try, but usually most of them, the posterior peritoneum is not opened, and usually we open the anterior peritoneum, but posterior peritoneum, some people they don't open it. But if it is needed, definitely we have to open it, skeletonize the uterus, uterine arteries, and put the clamps, so that we will not catch hold of the ureter into that, causing ligation or whatever, kinking or anything like that. So that is another thing. So, and another thing is, when you go down, when push the bladder down, this ureter will just cross at the level of the the angle of the vagina, where this thing, and then enter into the bladder, isn't it? So
Yes.
at that region, region where we are opening, that is very very important. We should not injure the ureter at that site. So by doing all these things, by pushing the bladder down and pushing the bladder posteriorly, or the opening the peritoneum and pushing the ureter down, most of the time this will not come out. And throughout the surgery, our aim should be that we should be very as close to the uterus as possible. So all the time we have to be close to the uterus, and only in cases where we see like fibroids on the lateral wall, or broad ligament fibroids. These are the cases where when we are cervical fibroids, when we anticipate, or any previous multiple surgeries and all that, whenever we anticipate this thing, then we can do pre-operative or para-operative. Means at the time of the surgery only, just before the surgery, we can put the ureteric catheters also by using the cystoscopy. So identifying the bladder injury is one thing. Is directly, suppose you have injured the bladder, definitely you can see the urine coming out. That if it is a big injury, sometimes it may be a small injury which we may not detect, but we still have a doubt about that. Then there are so many methods of detecting injuries, like injecting fluorescein and all that. Most of the time they are not available in our setups, so we can just dilute 2 to 3 drops in the normal saline, and then just inject into the this thing, Foley's catheter, so that it will distend, and then if there is any bluish discoloration coming out, then that will give one this thing, that clue that we have injured the bladder, this thing. And sometimes in just normal saline also, we can see, inject, and then see whether the bladder is distended properly or not. That also will, when you have a doubt about it, it is a clear-cut injury, definitely we can make out very easily. But only whenever it is a small injury, suppose at the distension, when you do more distension from below, then definitely that counter from the counter or anywhere that if there is a leak from that particular point, we can say that it is injured and then we have to repair. So recognition at the time of injuring the bladders, many a times it happens. So nothing to worry about that. But recognizing, just closing, before closing it, recognizing whether the bladder is injured at any point, either a small or big one. So that is more important. So another thing is, if we have a facility, immediately we can do a cystoscopy, and then you can see the counter of the bladder, and then any doubt about the ureter and all that, you can see the ureteric openings and the reflex from the urine from the ureters and all that. If there is reflex from both the sides, it's well and good that the ureters are intact. Still, if you think that there is kinking or anything like that, you can just pass this thing, catheter. Infantile catheters can be passed, or ureteric catheters can be passed up to 17 centimeters. So it goes up to 17 centimeters. That doesn't mean that definitely shows that there is no any obstruction to the ureter up till this thing. So both the ways we can try. So these are the small tips like. So cystoscopy is one thing, the bladder distension is one another thing, and putting a dye and then another thing. There are injectable or oral tablets and all that, which will take it will take time for the oral tablets to go into the urinary tract and then get excreted. But on the spot, what usually most of us will do is that either a normal saline or we just inject 1 or 2 drops of methylene 2 and then inject into that, because most of the time it should be autoclaved. If it is not autoclaved, again we can infect the peritoneum, isn't it? So that is the one we have to remember. Then if the cystoscopy is available, it is always better to go put a cystoscopy and see that the bladder counter and all that, and also the ureteric orifices also can be seen, whether they are intact or not also can be seen, and catheterization also can be done.
If there is any doubt regarding extent of bladder, then near the dome, so then we can even what you say, like distend the bladder and look for the extent, no, madam, even before dissection.
Yeah, you can extend the blood. See, once it is identified, suturing is very easy.
No,
So
no,
bladder suturing, we
before,
need not.
before injuring, I'm saying, like if we have any confusion regarding the extent of the dome, to
Yeah.
know the dome level of bladder, if there is confusion because of adhesions and all near the bladder.
Yeah, we can.
And then for easy, I mean, handling or meddling, this Foley's, it's better to be over the patient's limb than under the limb, no, madam.
Yeah,
Everything.
actually, if there is a suspicion about bladder, you are very this thing about the bladder the injury. What we can do is that put the patient in lithotomy position with stirrups, so that with these stirrups sometimes there is a mechanism where they can be lifted up or down according to our convenience, and then put the patient in downward trend line position. So in the 10 line position in between, so the assistant can stand in between, and then see the catheter, also see whether there is any hematuria is there or not and all that. And also at the same time, he can retract the bladder from above. Usually we'll retract the bladder, isn't it? So the retraction of the bladder can, and the another assistant from opposite side also can assist. So this is other position where when we are suspecting a bladder this injury, I mean any the previous the surgeries and all that, where suspecting injury, when you are doubtful about that, it is always to prepare in such a way that there may not be anything sometimes, but sometimes it may be even for one single surgery also there might be lot of additions and all that. So for that reason we have to be very, be careful like that. Whenever the surgeries, previous history of surgeries are there.
Okay, thank you so much, madam. I'll let you know once I operate this patient. And then
Okay. So that is the feedback we need, and whenever there is any new problem has arisen, when what we are not talked at this time, and again we can discuss about those problems. So because there may not be one problem in one patient, so there will be different problems will be there. So any other new problems have arisen, then in those cases we can discuss again.
Yeah, madam.
Okay.
Yeah, madam. And then tomorrow we'll meet with a new issue.
Okay.
Thank you so much, madam.
Okay.